compulsory for us to take one stand, or can we switch? Like, is it a discussion or proper debate?
If you're convinced by someone else, okay, you can switch your stand. If you feel you had a wrong stand or no.
So we have to take a stand.
Initially, you have to have an opinion, right? And if you are convinced by someone else, then that person is actually, one more way. Which yes.
So you're actually, then maybe you're for democracy, you are for capitalism, you are for myth, but that hasn't yet emerged. What I'd suggest is, first let's get us 2-3 ideas of what is democracy, and 2-3 talks, short ones, on what's capitalism, and then 2-3 students saying what's the tension, and then we can see if there are two sides emerging out of it, when you can take sides. Okay? Is that okay? So let's start. Who wants to go? And what's the short speech? How long is short?
3 minutes.
Or 30 seconds?
That's really short.
Huh?
That's really short.
30 seconds, you should be able to communicate what you want to say. Try 20 seconds up to 1 minute. Okay, well, you will tell us about democracy.
Yeah, good evening. So essentially, I believe we're looking at 3 different strata here. One is economics, the other is society, and third is governance. On the face of it, capitalism falls under the stratum economics, because capitalism, I believe, is something in which a form of economics in which the means of production are controlled by private individuals. Democracy, again on the face of it, falls under the stratum of governance. Democracy is a form of governance in which the means of production is a form of governance in which people have the supreme power. The government is of for and by the people. If I touch upon the tension, well, the tension rises when you go into the details, because capitalism is not only capitalism. Capitalism is not only economics. Capitalism is economics plus society. Democracy is governance plus society. So it is a societal part wherein they collide, and I think that is where the tension comes.
Okay, yes.
So to add on to Vikas's point, I was analyzing a line on social contract theory given by Jean-Jacques Rousseau. They said that any society has 3 elements. First is politics, the philosophy. Second is economics, which drives the politics. And these 3 forces are in dynamics, continuous movement, and which in turn derive the society. And these four elements are in the continuous feedback system. So what Vikas said ultimately collide to the point that politics and this economics has to go hand to hand, and in turn drives the society. So one very good line I wrote from a social contract theory about how democracy is defined as. I'm just reading it. It says that a method of group decision making characterized by a kind of equality among the participant and an initial stage of collective decision making. It consists of 3 important points. One is group decision making, second is participant, and third is collective decision making.
Okay, that's how democracy works, right? Yes. And that's what democracy is.
Since you brought Rousseau into the picture, I'd like to say what capitalism does to democracy. Another part of Rousseau's theory is that the legislature, the judiciary, and the third thing should be, they should be executive should be independent. The capitalism destroys that independence because the capitalism eventually leads to a form of marketalism where the people who have private property can control the politics and the execution in such a way that they can manipulate the political systems to their advantage. That is how the mechanism of power is in capitalism.
So what you said, what should be, what he's saying, how it works. Okay.
So can you define what's the underlying philosophy of the capitalism?
Okay, we'll get some other points. Giving chance to more people to participate in. You give me a second. Yeah.
Since he asked us to define capitalism first, and then we can analyze the effect of capitalism on democracy. So I would say capitalism is a mode of production with 2 dominant classes. One is the capitalist class, which owns and controls capital, and the other one is the labor class, which has its own labor to sell to the capitalist class. And the whole system is driven by the capitalist's incessant pursuit for higher profits. So that's how I will define capitalism.
Okay, is the definition okay with you?
No. I'll say capitalism is when you have to state your labor, you have to sell your labor, and the capitalist pays for your labor instead of doing some labor himself.
Yeah.
So he gets that labor arbitrage using and the accumulated labor arbitrage of several individuals. That accumulates as capital. Using that capital, he again invests to buy more labor. So it's like the privileged already have capital because they have accumulated labor. The initial amount of capital comes from certain privileges which people already had when capitalism began.
Okay, so there's a similar background.
Yeah,
So,
I believe we are having a very black and white view of capitalism. There are two important factors here. One is one is a middle class, as per various schools of thought, is a consequence of capitalism. B, capitalism believes in market forces, and when I say capitalism believes in market forces, I mean the concentration of power is taken off from the hands of the government and put in, let the invisible hand of the market decide for itself. So capitalism, in a way, is a decentralization of force, which is what the tenets of democracy are based on. So it's not always capitalism versus democracy. Maybe capitalism has led to democracy in the first place.
On the invisible hand, I'll
So,
say
so,
that
Okay, wait. First of all, I did say that if raised two fingers is immediately relevant, we'll keep that in mind. But let some people participate for a few seconds. Yes, please. One by one.
I do not agree with Vikas on this third thing that capitalism gave rise to the middle class. It was not capitalism that gave rise to the middle class. It was actually democracy that gave rise to the middle class. Because capitalism in itself is more like autocratic. After some period of time, it leads to autocracy. It leads to kinghood. It leads to hierarchy. So we cannot say that capitalism leads to middle class.
No, arguing here, economics would lead to economics, and I believe governance would lead to governance. So, economics of capitalism would lead to an economic distinction in the amount of wages given, and middle class is probably somewhere between lower class.
Okay, we'll go with.
So here, I guess the distinction should be made between the governance part and the business. The business, as Vikas said, is controlled by the market forces most of the time in most normally functioning countries. But in case of capitalism, it exists in all nations wherever there is no external control, where we let the market forces do their task. And democracy, as ever, is the way the country is governed, which may or may not interfere with the way business functions.
Yeah, so
Economy and governance.
Oh, wait. No. We'll go to the.
yeah, adding to what Vikas said, if we look at democracy in this way, it would be like distribution of wealth from in an equitable way. That is taking it from the rich and then maybe distributing. Okay, that would be a
Democracy is
socialist.
equality of status and opportunities. It does not mean you take from the rich and
Yeah, but
that's
then-
probably what Robert does.
Yeah, but no, but then
Let
it's
us finish it. One of the rules that we learned before we graduate is to let somebody finish her or his thought. Right? We will not interrupt in the middle. Yes,
yeah.
please.
I was just trying to see how it is very different from capitalism, because capitalism enables a person who is rich to increase his opportunities by improving his conditions, but in democracy it is trying to have a socialist status in the end. That is ensuring that everyone gets, as he said, equal opportunities, and maybe give, not just control the economy, so that the wealth is not just concentrated in a single group of people.
Okay. And we'll also bear in mind from now on that our point should be new, and we will make a new point, but just as seen in advance, to make new points and move forward, or at least drop on what somebody has said. Yes, please.
Rather, like contradicting the point that capitalism gives rise to middle income groups, I would say that capitalism, when it is driven by profit-oriented motives, is basically responsible for inequitable distribution of wealth, giving rise to lower income groups and very high income groups rather than supporting the middle income groups. But on the other hand, democracy is somehow synonymous or has a background to socialism, which focuses on bridging the gap between the two, and there where middle income groups become a major factor of, or the focus of the democracy.
She has been having for a long time.
So most of them actually countered that point.
Can you summarize?
So I think people have different notions about capitalism and democracy. So I would say that capitalism does not exclude the government part of it, because government is integral to the functioning of the capitalist system, because there are certain market failures involved and the government needs to intervene there. So when Vikas says that it takes away power from the government, the market forces take power from the government, they have to function in a very balanced manner. It's not like both the things are divorced from each other. So we need to keep that in mind when we say capitalism. It's not like we are excluding the government out of the picture.
We'll give half a minute. Then they can come back. No, but there is somebody, let's just finish this and then we'll go exactly the order which it says. Yeah.
So I'd like to respond to the point of class. Basically, everybody.
Wait. The conflict hasn't come, and so we haven't yet come. We're just trying to clarify.
So we raise the point of classes emerging through capitalism.
We're not debating just capitalism. We're debating or we're going to discuss democracy.
No, I want to counter how democracy is not necessarily the emergence. They all believe that individual mobility is there in capitalism because class emerges and everyone has equal mobility to transcend from one class to another. That is how democracy is supposed to reinforce capitalism and make it such that it's participative. But
Go ahead.
But I say that in capitalism only capital has mobility, not individuals. So it actually takes away from individuality. So without so capitalism is fundamentally like against democracy, because democracy tries to put everyone's opinion in public sphere. That is only possible when people have some degree of equal power. Capitalism tries to change that. It doesn't give equal power, it gives power to capital. So if you don't have enough capital, you are not involved. We can see it in media today, whose opinions are reflected. The opinions of the corporations who own the media houses. Although 85% of this country is agriculture and laborers, their opinion is not reflected because they don't have.
Okay.
I think essentially in this debate, most speakers have concentrated on the definitions of capitalism and democracy and more theoretical concepts. But the moot point here is the tension arises when there is a problem of cohabitation between democracy and capitalism. Key issues that are brought up are with respect to governance, with respect to profit being a maximizing initiative or interest, and that of social equality or inequity, as some people mentioned. But the questions that are against democracy are that if you talk about governance, democracy as a form of more holistic governance and capitalism only favoring a certain few, then where has India achieved, what has India achieved in the last 60 years of democracy? You have 40% poverty. It has not helped reduce income inequality. Secondly, free market today is probably a very idealistic term. You cannot have free market elements operating in any economy. A democratic form of government or any form of government would probably act as a watchdog or as a regulator for free market elements. Thirdly, in terms of a social concept, the capitalist is also part of the people. So he is also part of the democratic framework. It's just that he or she wields more power because of greater available resources. So I think we need to look at more specific areas where democracy and capitalism today are creating a conflict where one is influencing the other in a negative way to the detriment of society.
So where is this conflict coming from? Can somebody just summarize it in a nutshell? Conflict between the two.
So I think the time factor is very important over here, because I feel that democracy and capital are two very separate important entities, but they also have a point where they coexist, and they can successfully coexist only when the democratic element has developed as much as the capitalist element. Because in a successful democracy, we can note that the capitalism is enjoyed by a lot of people, and similarly, if the country wants to be prosperous as well, then capitalism also needs to have developed at that level. So I think the tension arises when one grows at a completely different level than the other. That's where we're facing problems.
Okay. Anybody else to summarize now the tension part is?
From the discussion, it's clear that some people are going to portray capitalism and democracy as clearly black and white thing, but it's not that. There is always a gray area, and the tension lies in the gray area. The basic part which which is causing tension in the society, because society, it's the society which differentiates the democracy and capitalism. Some thinks that democracy is what will make people comfortable in the society, and some people think that capitalism is the only way forward. But somehow we need to find the golden mean of both of them, and we need to take equally good important things from both of them to find a solution.
Anybody else? Yes.
From the discussion, it is clear that in a capitalist approach, basically we put money in the driver's seat, as in the capital in the driver's seat. The capital is what gives direction to whatever goes in. But in a democratic approach, ideally, it's the people, all the voices, the opinions of the people that should be in the driver's seat. So this is where the tension comes in, because when money commands the way an entity moves forward, and when people start thinking, again, taking it to the analogy of colors, in a capitalistic approach, money defines things in black and white. But in a democratic approach, when people are involved, when there is a rational mind taking decisions, there has to be a grey element, and this is what causes tension. The tension happens basically between the commanding power and the binding decisions that money imposes on people, and the opinions and the greater good that a democracy stands for in terms of its representation of people.
Very good. Ajit?
I think what he has actually summarized pretty well. I agree with him when he says that capital is what drives. In capitalism, you have money, which is driving decisions. But how I think socialism in that way is similar is that to democracy is that socialism actually gives equal power to each individual rather than giving more power to the people with more money. So essentially that's the point that I have.
Wow, that's nice. Let's have the two new views here. Please, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I was reading today in the newspaper where India stands as of now. We know that India is a democratic country by definition. But whatever ever has been now researched, like India is standing at a 65% poverty level. So, again, now the debate which is also going on between the food bill and whether the investment should be on, in more investment and more growth should be promoted in India. So if food bill is passed and or supported like what Amartya Sen is saying, then we give more importance to democracy. Again, we see the growth of India is not really doing well. So here again the capitalist idea comes in, where more amount of capital will be confined to the upper limit of the people and poor are again neglected. So there is a tension between the democracy and capitalism, but it will, I don't know really what is the situation and how it can be resolved.
So there have been excellent comments. What I like about this one is, let's talk about some specific cases. So that you brought in India and how it was working out. It's not just theoretical concept. Yes.
So I would say that from a common man's point of view, a common man would want equal opportunities, which is guaranteed to him in democracy, that it's for the people, of the people, by the people. So he has a guarantee that yes, I get equal opportunities to develop and grow. And also when it comes to capitalism, it has created a lot of number of jobs for the common man. So as long as it works in his favor, he gets a job opportunity, he gets to grow, it's good for it. But when he gets to know that the information that he is getting is being manipulated by these certain people, or the money that he is getting, it is being manipulated by them, then I think a conflict rises, because he starts to question that whether it is actually the equality he is getting, or is it being manipulated by some other sources.
Okay.
Just adding to her point, democracy was the individual right to protect herself or himself, his own rights, and they can take their rational decision at any point of time. They have full freedom for them, and they have the equality opportunity. But according to me, in capitalism, there is an economic system. There is a private property and free market, and there is a huge gap
Okay, so I'll make just one comment and then I'll go to all of you. Let's bring in some real history here as to the source of the tension, okay? And you have already articulated it. The reason I go to the history is how the constitution makers had worried about it. So if you think about, the idea is the poor are more numerous, so if you have equality, then they will dominate the government. That's understood. And which means they can take away by government fiat the property of others. This has been the biggest concern in any constitution making. And so the constitutions are made because capitalism can survive only with private property and ownership and all those. Otherwise, you can have as many definitions, right? And so somebody wants to preserve property and somebody wants to take it away, and therein lies some role for institutions that you mentioned at the beginning, right? Remember, executive, this, that, having power of various kinds in order to try a balance between them. So if I take the example of, okay, what should we do in India just to define the debate? Shall we leave it to the way things work as is? Or should we, that is capitalism and democracy will strike a balance somehow or the other and it will be good for the society? Or it will not, in which case if we intervene, how do we do it? But if you have any other idea to suggest that we should have these two sides, one side being leave things alone as is, capitalism and democracy tension we understand. Another is some intervention is needed in maybe the original constitution itself to streamline this that so that the balance is struck. Are those two opposing sides satisfactory, or do you want to suggest something else? Yes, please.
So I feel democracy has been very narrowly defined since that the state becomes a protector of private property, as you said. But this
You
is,
said that. As a matter of fact.
no, you just like told that.
I cited you.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that is because we've taken democracy to have only a certain set of values like contractarian view of individual rights or something like distributive justice. All these ideas come from a different, come from a liberal kind of theory of justice and virtue and all that. But there are collective theories of value systems and how democracy should work. So all of us, so this has created a negation such that socialism is viewed as a very statist principle with decentralized distribution of welfare and all that. But a view of democracy can also be highly decentralized collectives which live
Okay, I understand. I really want to go with a particular set of countries. I'm not getting to get into this theoretical discussion of democracy for this particular hour we are talking about. So democracy shall mean, at least with that, how things are actually happening. How are things actually happening? Okay, we'll take it from the real life. So for instance, our democracy is sharing power between different income groups. Okay? So I'm not going to go into so as to what it should be. So the word should right now be outside. What is it happening? How can we make a difference? Although that is also very important, but today we will just define it for today's discussion. Yes, please. You have been, you got a point.
So, tension is bound to arise between two complementary forces. Like, democracy is based on the principles of equality. Capitalism is based on the concentration of wealth among some in the hands of few people. So, tension is bound to rise. But capitalism, in a way, gives a more efficient way of utilization of resources, as in case of private ownership of the resources. Like, if we totally give away our country in the hands of democracy and let it be the equal distribution of resources and all, it will lead to inefficiencies and inefficient use of the resources. And whereas capitalism, it infuses a sense of more efficient use of resources through private ownership. So if a correct balance is struck between both the forces, democracy and capitalism, it will lead to better.
Good, I'm listening to you.
Yes, that's.
Okay, so I'm going to present two, leave things as is. the way that India is working, for instance, capitalism, you can think of another country, or don't. And then you might suggest something else to do. There are two sides now we can define. Let the way it is working out between capitalism and democracy, because you want to focus on the tension, right? We are not just going to define this, what is capitalism, what's democracy, and this is as in real life, as you see it, and if you can invoke theories, etc., that's fine. So you can now say, make a case for leaving things as is, or make a case, let's change it, and in what way?
Before that, can I just respond to that?
We got only up to 6:30, right? You got 5-6 opportunities. Let's go to yes.
Sir,
And let's define order. 1, 2, because 3, you have been yes, 4, 5. Do you remember? Yes. And then you 6.
No, I just want to respond to that point, not of this.
To how many seconds? 15 seconds.
Sir, capitalism and efficiency, she said that's the best way to distribute resources. But even Marx accepted that. But the thing is, even for slavery, the same arguments are given. When you privately own labor, when he becomes your property, you are bound to take much more care of him. Those labor resources are supposed to be much more evenly, better distributed and for higher efficiency. So efficiency is not the aim of civilization. It's to make better human living. Just because something raises efficiency doesn't mean we should go and take it.
So,
Okay, 2 minutes.
so I just want to ask, why are we necessarily associating democracy with socialism? I mean, we have democratic governments actually advocating, who are capitalist economies. So democracy and capitalism are coexisting today. So why are we actually saying that democracy, because of its socialist connection, is posing problems for capitalism? Should we be discussing how well they are complementing or not,
They are complementing. First tell us how they are complementing. It's a very good question, and how they are opposing. The two sides.
Yeah.
So,
No, she raised the point. So how do they complement?
So they complement because capitalism itself is in requirement of a state authority, and democracy is the one which has a representative form of government, and it provides the, overseeing framework for capitalist economy to function. So that's how they complement each other. But democracy again is a very long-drawn decision-making process that might slow down things for capitalism. For example, China might have a different setup which might favor capitalist growth, while India, because of its long decision-making process, because of its strong democratic values, is posing some problems to capitalism. And the inequality part again, as everybody is saying, so that I agree with.
Just one question. China can have capitalism, can't it?
So today China is not a communist country as we know.
state-sponsored.
So it is
State-sponsored. They can have capitalism, private property.
It's not private property, everything is state-owned, but then they are...
State is now the
So, I agree with her, totally agree with her.
And then you'll go in that order.
Capitalism needs a democratic framework to thrive in. In fact, how many companies do you know from places like Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, the erstwhile USSR? None. So capitalism needs a democratic environment. Also, if you are saying it's always capitalism versus democracy, I believe you do not believe in this one principle of trickle-down effect. If capitalism plus trickle-down effect, I think that's as democratic as anything which is related to democracy.
I would like to add to that point only, that I was going on that point. Actually, the democracy is the rule of the majority, and capitalism is somewhere around the rule of the few. They both need to be coherent together, the capitalism and democracy. The problem arises when capitalism starts to get pulling into the democracy. All the things that we have seen, especially the power groups or the lobbying that is done, that is when the capitalism starts pulling into the democracy. That is where the rules are specifically made for capitalists, and that is where the rules for all the common people is not taken into account.
I'll just add one point to this, which is that capital can fly out. Because of which the amount you can restrict capital is somewhat limited. Yes, please.
Sir, I wanted to add to the point that democracy and capitalism are coexisting. Like we can see in the example our country is facing, we have democratic government and capitalism is it is thriving at a very fast rate. Like it is infringing on the rights of the lower strata of the society. Giving the example of FDI, which the government is currently promoting that, it is again I will synonymize it to a sort of capitalism only. And when we consider the benefits or the disadvantages that we come, that if we consider them, then again I say that capitalism here, FDI would be again infringing on the rights. So though they are coexisting, but again they are at loggerheads.
Very well. So whatever the country needs some foreign capital, rupees depreciating, what should they do? If they want to attract for capital, what should they do? Yield to capital? That's democracy then?
No sir, that is not the way.
But that's what they're doing right now, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what democracy is, an elected government functioning for the benefit of the capital.
But then sir, again, what's required is again, we've discussed that before, that the balance, the exact balance, or it's a very delicate
and who is
line.
going to bring this balance?
So that is what we cannot leave the state as it is. If we are discussing that whether it should remain the status quo as it is, we need to change things in a manner that a balance need to be brought.
How do we change? Okay, we must yield to you. He has been at it for a long time. Yes, please.
Okay, so since you looked at the theoretical part, I just thought of giving an example as to how in a democratic framework, how two different approaches can be taken. In the case of India, I'm looking at two states specifically. If you look at the state of Kerala, it is a very socialistic approach to democracy. And if you look at the state of Gujarat, you can see it's a very capitalistic approach to growth. Both of these states have done well in certain aspects. As in, there are people who subscribe to these as two extreme ends of a development model. Looking at that, I think the question of tension comes in this aspect, that capitalism focuses on the question as to how growth can be brought in to a certain economy or a certain framework. And democracy looks at the question as to what growth can bring to a certain framework.
So distribution.
Yeah, I think even though there is, even if we try to disassociate
okay.
it, there is a link between democracy to socialism somewhere. Because what democracy stands for basically is for the lower, what by definition stands for is equality.
Okay.
So, but when
You should sparingly use your two-finger case. Sometimes after Russian now the two fingers. So go ahead.
So, but when he gives the examples of
15
these
seconds.
these two states, both of them are democratic states. Why are we not focusing on that? When he says democracy is somewhat associated with socialism, both the states are democratic, and Gujarat being democratic again is following a capitalist approach to development. So why again the link between democracy?
Okay, in both these cases, I think the difference comes in basically where the capital comes from. There are very few industries of huge capacity in Kerala, but that is not the case with Gujarat. And again, the difference lies in how there is distribution of wealth within the state. As in the indicators which economists like Amartya Sen used to rate Kerala much higher than Gujarat, and the indicators of certain other economists rate Gujarat higher. When you look at the rate at which it is growing, perhaps the capitalistic approach of Gujarat is very well lower. But when it comes to the question of like how he was standing for, when it comes to the question of good governance and excellent public policy, Kerala does well. Even though the capital comes from sources which people don't generally approve.
Okay, you want to say?
Yes, and even if you look at a state like Bihar, it's growing faster than a capitalist state, what we call Gujarat, it's more about socialist policy, it's more about distribution of income, more about governance, and more about bringing about equality. I just wanted to touch on two specific points where the tension lies. And the tension lies in our society when capitalism causes subversion of justice, and two, when capitalism influences public policy, where what is thought to be for the good of society is actually meant to cater to the interests of certain individuals. And chief examples of these I would give as a 2G scam or the coal allocation scam. And if you look at our justice system, where none of the bigwigs have till now been convicted, it's only the small people, it's only the common man who has problems and who's got. You have secretaries, you have number 2s and number 3s in companies. You'd never have the top honchos of any of these conglomerates who are being indicted.
Okay, we have
Just
Vikas.
Just a question.
Tarang is first now. You have a question?
Yes, I wanted to throw up a question.
Yes.
We are all aspiring managers studying in a B school here, one of the leading B schools in India. Ask yourselves, what's your dream company? Is it a public sector company or is it a capitalist?
But the point
So-
is, just one question. Public sector company also is a model of state-owned capitalism.
We can go in extremes, like she cited China. We can go in extremes. You need to say that if you go only advocate democracy
We have
and
to
say
give
that.
a chance to Tarang, otherwise you won't come next time.
Okay, thinking about democracy, what democracy is trying to do is it's trying to lessen the gap between the rich and the poor, whereas capitalist in its own approach will be widening the gap. But when the government policies are made, the government is expecting up to some extent that the capitalist nature of the economy will help them drive those policies and help them implement it in a much better way, which in the current scenario, which the democracy on its own is not able to do. So whether we consider the case in Kerala or in Gujarat, mainly the people there are of that nature that they want to will go in capitalist side, whereas in case state of Kerala, the governance is much better. So the backgrounds are different. So in this case, the other might help they can help each other for a better governance to reduce the gap where the conflict mainly rise.
Well, I think you had a lot of chances.
Democracy doesn't only mean voting. So as far as I see, in Gujarat there is voting, but there is no democracy. It's actually a fascist dictatorship, just like Hitler was. He also got elected. After that, he led a fascist dictatorship. This is exactly what Modi.
How many times did Hitler get elected?
Several times. He was continuously elected through.
Okay.
But sir, in Gujarat, the voting was 69% last time.
So, but when we see Gujarat, I don't see any kind of participative governance. The local people have nothing. People of Sanand wanted to protest against the Tata factory. They are brutally crushed down. Whereas in Kerala, if you go and see, every day you can see protests against some form. See, for me, that is a sign of hope in humanity. That people are still political, they care about these issues. Nothing can happen in Kerala.
To the extent of saying that Gujarat is no longer a democratic government, it is almost autocratic there. That is
Sir, just one point, sir.
You choose one. Which three? One only. Because you came with him, so you choose.
So I think it's almost the end of the discussion. So there is always a middle path, and I'll give you a very good example of middle path. Say, let's take the grey area of fuel subsidies in general. Capitalism says let the market forces decide the price. Democracy says make sure fuel is affordable to each and everyone. What the government of India did, and I believe it's a very good measure, is DCT, direct cash transfer. In that way, you let the markets decide the price, and just to make sure that everyone can afford it, you put the money in their bank accounts. So I believe the governments recognize this tension, and we have come up with something that is called as democratic capitalism. And I think DCT is an example.
Okay, now if the income distribution was better, okay, we'll get to the audience. What do they want to say? What's the observation? Something they should really address?
Sir, I want to oppose this.
Yes.
Okay, wait. You have opposed many things, which is very good. Yeah, let's hear. It's more democratic than capitalistic here.
The discussion went on from discussing about what is democracy and what is capitalism. It made a lot many things clear. And then we went on having examples from different states, including Gujarat, Bihar, etc. And then to this point, I would like to actually argue. I don't believe that DCT is a very good way of letting people buy what. It might be that you put money into their accounts, but they won't do. I mean, you use it for the same purpose for which you are.
It increases liquidity and there will be too much inflation and prices will go up.
Okay, you will go first then Ajay. Oh, here, what? Here, the microphone in your mouth.
I just wanted to make a point. The
should be there, so that there should not be so much of power in the form of capitalism or in the form of democracy. There should be some kind of harmony, or there should be some kind of strong regulatory body or some better policy implementations rather than discussing about which is better and which is not. Let's make the country a bit more stable.
What's your name?
Mamta.
Very good. Okay.
Sir, I think for our democracy to thrive in an idealist scenario, people, the decision-making body, that is it is a collective decision-making, the people should have information asymmetry. That is, when they make a decision, they need to know the pros and cons of what they are deciding. But here, it's not always like that. It is biased to the, or maybe capitalists or people who have power or capital with them, try to have that advantage to them of changing the ideas of whatever decision is taken by the lower strata. So that is where the tension comes, and democracy is not able to strive as it should.
Okay, Ajit, and we'll come to you after that.
Just to counter the point, I don't believe democracy is about giving fuel subsidies or any sort of subsidies for that matter. In fact, that's my complaint with democracy. The problem is that most of the times when governments near re-elections, they actually come out with freebies and tolls just to keep the electorate happy. Whereas that should probably not be the aim of democracy, it should be long-term governance. Whereas these short-term measures actually make the institutions and the society weak in general.
So that one point, you see, how do you make democracy function that strikes a good balance between short and long term? And is that how the democracy is functioning here?
I just wanted to put some facts about DCT. Vikas talked about it.
About what?
DCT, direct cash transfer.
Direct cash transfer.
Yeah.
So our topic is this.
No, few shortcomings of DCT. It was inspired
Will
from.
it shed light on the topic? Then anybody who can state it also what you are going to say is very important. Anybody else? Yes. If it's shed light, think about it. I'll come back to you.
So I think that a lot of blame is going towards capitalism, but as such the theory of capitalism is really good. The only problem with it lies, I blame a lot of it on democracy, the systems that we've set up. It's because of them that capitalism is not able to perform well. Like consider India for example. If the people in the democratic, the bureaucratic setup, if they did not submit themselves to the corporates, if they did not accept bribes, then none of this would have actually happened. We could have saved a lot of money and that would have directly trickled down. But what is happening here is that if we consider in this setup, we're having a debate right now and you're the moderator. So if you actually compare it, the democratic setup is the moderator and these people are sitting on the people who are looking for benefits, their own personal benefits. But if the moderator allows the democracy, all the people here to just go haywire, then it's going to result in a loss of the poor people as well. But if the moderator has a strong stand and like you control people when they talk too much, if they ask too much and all that, if you control it really well, then this problem will never arise.
I take it it's a compliment. Anybody else here? Okay, yes.
Just an outside opinion. I really believe democracy is the puppet of capitalism. If someone had to ask me who runs USA, I wouldn't say Barack Obama. I would rather say Exxon or Shell or any of the Wall Street firm. So basically, no matter how many debates you have in the parliament, it is based, in India especially, I feel it is Mukesh Ambani and Anil Ambani who decide what happens, how many gas subsidies occur. So I really don't think so there's a tension. It's just we who produce, but I don't think so our opinions matter so much as well.
Okay, I will just make one or two comments. These have been very thoughtful comments. Yes, please. Only 30 seconds.
I think the key point here is at the end, which summarizes the tension is like who gets to make the decision. It's the bone of contention is there, but at the end of the day, if you think of it again, who decides that who makes the decision? Because once you go to give it to the people, then it is going to create too much of chaos. And as it is, we have already debated so much that giving way to the capitalists in the government, it's giving too much power to the few people. So basically the contention comes down to the entire problem that who gets to make the decision as to who has the say in what happens in society. So there is, I don't believe that there is a clear black and white path to it. Like we need to figure out what it is.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you one more time. But even if your confusion has increased by being here for an hour, It is my experience this confusion is a good thing because now you are more sensitized, you go back, start reading things more carefully. In fact, that will be a better purpose of this meeting than sorting everything out here. Now, I want some 2, 3, 4 people to really summarize what happened. Remember, I emphasized listening. So, are there some volunteers who summarize in sort of an objective way what happened here? You will? Okay, think about it.
So today's discussion was basically focused on identifying the problems, and we have extensively discussed about the problem, about the tensions between democracy and capitalism. We have given our own perspectives, wherein we thought we brought in Rousseau, we brought in institutions, we brought in economics and social contract theories. Essentially, democracy and capitalism we categorized as part of a three-part structure of the society, wherein there is the people, the society, in the sense, the economics, essentially the capitalism that we're discussing about, and the politics, the democracy that we're talking about here. And the conflict that arises, the conflict of interest that arises between either two of these parties, wherein two parties focus on, one party focuses on their own wealth, and it essentially results in the loss to another party, one of the other two parties. Essentially, we've talked about capitalism, which is creating wealth through various means, and democracy, which is the institutional framework that empowers everyone to distribute the wealth created through capitalism or socialism or whatever means to the people of the society, the third party. Essentially, the conflict of interest between these two aspects that we are discussing here is the wealth created through capitalism is not distributed equally among the people of the society, and so the trickle-down theory, as we thought about, and many other theories that help basically think about distributing the wealth to the people are not fast enough to pass on the wealth to the society so that everyone develops on an equal footing.
Okay, that's very good. I'd like us to think about several countries in the world, certainly the Scandinavian countries, which have very good distribution, as well as very high incomes, and societies which also are very honest and non-corrupt, right? How do they do it? Just think about it as to how some nations are rich as well as better distribution, so they are growing well, high in technology, high in education. We'll just think about as a contrast to any other one. Someone else I need to summarize what happened. And I want to say one more thing. It brought in politics, it brought in economics, and so many political philosophers, some of you are representing them here in this audience as well. Anyone else to summarize? Take the challenge now to summarize it now. Whatever you've done. Yeah, you will. Summarize means everyone's point of view.
So the debate started off with defining what democracy and capitalism is, and then we proceeded to look at the tension. One person defined that capitalism means protection of like property in private hands, and there was soon a tension developed as to whether democracy was distributive and capitalism was tended to concentrate wealth in a few hands. Then the thing became whether wealth was important as an indicator or whether it should be the individuals as they are. Do they have equal power? Then there was some discussion on mobility, and there was he brought in the point of market forces and the invisible hand. A lot of people viewed as democracy as complementary to capitalism, and they both tend to, so democracy distributes rights and capitalism distributes money, and the invisible hand does that very efficiently. That was one side of the view. The other view was that people in lower mobility don't have the power to participate in the public sphere, and then people said that in 60 years India hasn't achieved much. Then another one view, some sort of like synthetic view came up that democracy is a form of government in which it's a watchdog over the capitalists, who so that they can control it and make sure that capitalism is for the good of the people. So it was put forward that democracy and capitalism can coexist, and they are coexisting now, and things shifted to how we should find the flaws and better regulatory mechanisms. And she said that the theory of capitalism is very good, and it was democracy that was failing us, and something of the personal credentials of the people who are involved in democracy, that is what is the problem with it. Then there was some kind of discussion on whether capitalism was given jobs, to which I wanted to respond, but it wasn't given chance. And there was also a discussion about whether the state is a protector of private property or it's a protector of individual rights, and whether the contractarian view of rights is correct or we should go for capitalism. Then what?
That's very good. You've been quite neutral. I'm very pleased. And look at this guy. He made all the notes and fair to points of view. I really like that one. Anyone else? Okay, what is the other? You want some bullfight here? Whatever they want to do?
Okay, like,
I have few comments at the end. Yeah.
okay, I guess first we should ask do you want to say some points? Okay, I guess counter arguments have been done, so you can just.
You want them to?
No, I guess they've done it enough.
Is there any point of view that hasn't come and you are really wanting to tell us? Okay, I want to emphasize just I'm going to draw from history rather than my opinion. And so the way history it has emerged, democracy is about sharing of power. It's not my exact thing, it's about sharing power among various groups or forced to share. That's point number one. And point number two would be that there is always historically for almost like 3,000 years fear that you have democracy and the poor will take away the property. And so most of the documents are constantly worrying about what institutions, rules to design such that the property is not taken away. So on the first attempt, they want democracy, but then they want to control it. And that control comes through institutions of various kinds, laws, restricting voting, restricting this, restricting that, so women did not vote. People without property did not vote once upon a time. People must have the property requirements you must see, as well as arbitrary. So this is happening in America as well, it's happening in all countries. India is one of the few countries where the voting rights right from the beginning have been the way it is existing, more or less. Most countries did not have it that way. So there's the property has always tried to contain democracy. Some of the great comments that were made, despite all these, we have some very super rich really controlling the government, either because they're super rich or they use the method of corruption. And so, in fact, it becomes a violation of democracy. And the sense that distribution is not fair enough, and the income inequality, whether you talk about India or the United States, is rising. Scandinavian countries are a few exceptions. So striking a balance, one can even ask, is it possible to have a good growth through inclusion? So you gave an example of Kerala. And so here is a counter-example proposed is of Gujarat from your neighbor. They're next to each other, that also is here. So now, so these are some of the things that I would consider, okay, how democracy is actually practiced. How was capitalism actually practiced? What was the actual tension? So this is different from what did philosophers think about democracy? What do philosophers think about capitalism? That also is worth reading. But one should read actually how is it working, because ultimately the laws that emerge in a nation by which we are guided are, in economics there is a term called endogenous. There is no God who is going to implement the laws. We create the laws and we implement. So if somehow even within a democracy power is concentrated, and that power can then be captured by a few, and that's not going to function exactly the way we picture democracy to be, or the philosophers think about democracy to be. So those are some concluding comments, trying to draw as much from history. So given that you have come here, So I thought you may go and read more. So how about this EPS group, next time they deal with a similar or same or something close substitute topic, related topic, and reassemble to then show off all the readings they do and then the refinement. By the way, how did you think about everybody else participated? Did somebody dominate, try to dominate? Nothing? The good guys? What did you learn? Anyone, one person will just one opinion. You learned something. That is EPS effective?
I learned that I have to learn a lot.
That is one of the best ones actually. I learned that I have to learn. That mirrors my experience at that time. And in fact, every time, and I have bad news for you. The more you learn, the more you find out, the more ignorant you are. And you end up in worse and worse. That's why you do have a risky path. Okay, I'll give it to the organizers.
Hi, so this is the third version of Rocket Teams. So basically when you start an event, you want it to be more formal when it grows bigger, more formal. But what we want is to be more informal. We want you to have these conversations while sitting for lunch and in your mess. Because, these stir your imagination and you think further than whatever is present in your academics. It goes beyond that. So I really hope this helps you guys, these points which you've taken, you debate with your friends when you go back to your room. So that's the point of starting this debate. Also, we have an online debate at Facebook. So in this, you just want to have people in your campus, you have people from all ages and from various backgrounds debating. So I'll just give you a glimpse because the last person who won the debate was from Gujarat. He was studying somewhere in arts. So if we could bring forth such arguments where people are fine him or also silenced by him. So we want you guys to have that kind of interaction. So I really hope this has been of help, and I would love if you give some feedback according to this, how you organize it. So do write feedback with this reason and
So can I add to her point? First of all, I thank them for calling me of all people, and I really appreciate the amount of effort they are putting to organize it. But to supplement her point, I have to go back to recall my days in PGP. And what I recall is exactly what she said. So I was really struck by her observation. Is at the institute, who you relate with, who you debate with, what you do, how you debate, how you listen, how you refine, and how you are pressed that I don't know enough, and then you go back and leave. And that is what, if some of you were listening to me at the day of the induction, I had said, at least the first year students, that 50% of my learning was from my classmates. And that opportunity should not be foregone, and that's what she said. So I truly like it, and this is the time where, like the cubs, you've seen lion cubs or tiger cubs, how they keep fighting with each other in order to become and grow, and then one day they'll pounce on an eye and be a student, that's how. Now, who do you think performed very well? I got 2 chocolates to give away, and you choose. They choose that.
Oh no, I wanted chocolate.
Now we have to give it to the participants. You are the organizers. So who do we give? You 3 of you.
Ma'am, actually they've been observers and they've been waiting for a long time.
No, for us it is wonderful to see that students have prepared so well. It's all
diplomatic with this.
She doesn't want chocolate. So who do you want to give?
We want your comment.
Okay, any comment before we give?
We want your comment about how the thing.
comments on the topic, but I must say that at least we were all talking here that we were very impressed with the way all of you were arguing or making your points, discussing. For me, the learning was that our students are keeping up with everything, and that's very heartening as far as I'm concerned. And I think if you want to
I think it was quite stimulating to hear to all of you, and I think we could have gone furry, but it was contained, and that's what is the beauty of such a debate. So I have in fact learned from all of you. So thank you so much.
And that Professor Priya in the back.
Hi, sorry I joined in late, but the discussion was really going well, and I think you've done some amount of homework, which is really nice. And even with such a contentious issue, there was a lot of civility. People respected each other's opinion, and I think that's a great sign. So I hope we have more of such interesting debates and a wider participation too. And let's make this a regular feature. Definitely would like to come and listen to all of you. Yeah, yes.
Okay, now you have to distribute the chocolate. Who do you think are the two good candidates? Oh, Indian member!
Sir has been very generous with me.
Of course.
Yeah, I know. It's one of your qualities. So I must thank and compliment the organizers first of all. I know how much of effort goes into inviting people, and there have been times, I'm sure, when nobody has turned up, and or probably one or two of you have come, and they would have had to speak throughout the entire session. I have done that, have faced it, and I think this is the largest participation I've ever seen ever since all those debates were held. And I must congratulate all of you, because not only was there participation, but I was amazed at the fact that all of you have read before coming. I mean, there is a certain level of maturity in your statements, a certain level of knowledge which is backing up your opinions. Of course, there are opinions here and there, but more or less there was, as ma'am said, a general level of civility, which is very heartening. Thank you.
Everything she said is very correct, except the first sentence that I have been very nice to her. Her actual opinion is the other way around. So with that, okay, it's your turn.
So you can decide to. Yes, please.
There is no right or wrong.
This is not democracy.
Okay, I'll make myself very unpopular, but I guess one chocolate should go to him. Not that I agree with all of his views, but because of his general level of participation and a very good summary in the end. Very good.
I think I was very impressed with your summary at the end and your fair score. That was very nice, yes. Okay.
And
Observer, how about the observer? They are the, because otherwise it's difficult to choose, they're all equal.
Share.
Man, they made very good argument. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the debate. And all of you, please keep your space. We'll have lots of fun in this debate as well. So we would really like to thank Dada sir for taking out his time to talk for this debate, and the audience as well.
Oh, I'm going to go anywhere somebody is listening to me. So I should thank you. Okay, take care.
Thank you.